To say that it was not an unconstitutional coup is incredible, when she actually had a cable that we have in the WikiLeaks in which U.S. Ambassador to Honduras Hugo Lorenz says it was very clearly an illegal and unconstitutional coup. So she knows this from day one. She even admits in her own statement that it was the Honduran military, that she says, well, this was the only thing that was wrong there, that it was the military that took Zelaya out of the country, as opposed to somehow that it was an illegal thing we did, that the Honduran government did, deposing a president.
I want to turn to that WikiLeaks cable on Honduras. The U.S. Embassy in Tegucigalpa, the capital of Honduras, sent a cable to Washington on July 24, 2009, less than a month after the coup. The subject line was "Open and Shut: the case of the Honduran coup." The cable asserted, quote, "There is no doubt that the events of June 28, 2009 constituted an illegal and unconstitutional coup," unquote. The embassy listed arguments by supporters of the coup to claim its legality and dismissed each of them, saying, quote, "None has any substantive validity under the Honduran Constitution." The embassy went on to say the Honduran military had no legal authority to remove President Zelaya from office or from Honduras. The embassy also characterized the Honduran military's actions as an abduction and kidnapping that was unconstitutional. Again, this was the U.S. Embassy memo that was sent from Honduras to Washington.
6 months earlier, the president of the Republic, Manuel Zelaya, promised the Iguan campesinos to help them get their land back. He told them that under a new constitution, they could enshrine their right to land. 3 weeks later, he was kidnapped by the military, a coup d'etat.
These Honduran soldiers surround the presidential palace with one mission: to arrest their president. And they succeeded. Manuel Zelaya was taken into military custody and whisked away to an Air Force base on the outskirts of the capital.
Known as the Hawks of Washington. She bowed to those pressures, and that led U.S. policy to Honduras to be ambiguous and mistaken.
Pero por otro lado, estaban negociando.
On the one hand, they condemned the coup, but on the other hand, they were negotiating with the leaders of the coup. And Secretary Clinton lent herself to that, maintaining that ambiguity of U.S. policy toward Honduras, which has resulted in a process of distrust and instability of Latin American governments in relation to U.S. foreign policy.
I mean, it was certainly, Obama made some noises the very first day or two, and then after that was largely silent and handed over to Secretary of State Clinton. Clearly, he was her boss. If he didn't approve of this, it wouldn't have happened. And so I think it's really important when we talk about Hillary Clinton, the candidate, what she's doing, to also talk about Obama's responsibility for that and Obama's responsibility for what's happened since. Because I think, as a lot of people know, that coup and the illegitimate election that followed it, that Hillary Clinton is celebrating so clearly in her statements, opened the door to this almost complete destruction of the rule of law in Honduras. People hear about, oh, the gangs and violence and drug traffickers are taking over. Well, that's because the post-coup governments, both of Micheletti, Lobo, and now Juan Orlando Hernandez, have completely destroyed the rule of law because they're in cahoots with these various forms of organized crime and drug traffickers and violence against the Honduran people. So this whole post-coup regime has also led to this tremendous corruption of the judiciary and the police and the military, for that matter. So that's just what's happened to Honduras. It's not just like they're randomly violent people down there. This is a U.S.-supported regime. The aftermath of the coup, if you look at all these statistics, yes, it's not like there was a golden age before the coup, but this tremendous destruction of the basic rule of law in Honduras.
Elections will be the first ever to break with the traditional two-party system. However, at the very moment that the resistance was meeting in the capital, the powers that be used the national police to send their own message in the Iguan.
perdieron aproximadamente 90 casas, como unas 500 personas, con niños y todos los habitantes.
They should be sent back as soon as it can be determined who responsible adults and their families are, because there are concerns about whether all of them can be sent back, but I think all of them who can be should be reunited with their families.
And so people leave. They flee to Panama, Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Mexico, and the United States.
And when they end up on our border, in our country, they deserve to be protected and cared for within a system that acknowledges the victimization, violence, corruption, and trauma